Are we ready?
Hey, Maureen, thanks for agreeing to host. I think we're live.
I think we are too. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We have it all straightened out. So good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Maureen Scallon-Fahler, and I'm president of the Dakota County Regional Chamber of Commerce, which represents businesses and nonprofits and community partners throughout Dakota County. Small businesses and nonprofits is the pulse and the heartbeat of all of our cities and communities. You know, they provide jobs, products, and services, and they are a key financial contributor to city, county, state, and federal governments. These businesses and organizations make our cities thrive and as well contribute to the vitality to the state of Minnesota. And our world has changed forever due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And our business owners are waking up every day wondering how they're going to keep their businesses open and their employees working. So tonight, we are here to provide you with the necessary resources and information to help you and your business navigate through this unprecedented time. And tonight, we are very fortunate to be joined to have U.S. Representative Angie Craig of the Minnesota Congressional District 2 and Brian McDonald, Acting District Director of the Minnesota District Office of the Small Business Administration. And I want to personally thank each of you for taking time out this evening to be here to help us and give us some valuable information. So I will now turn it over to Representative Craig to start this informative session.
Well, thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you to the Dakota County Chamber. Many of you may know that this congressional district includes Dakota, Scott, Goodhue, Wabasha, a little sliver of southern Washington, and half of Rice counties. And so there are many, many businesses across Minnesota that are inside the 2nd Congressional District. I wanted to have this small business assistance constituent briefing this evening and have invited the Small Business Administration here with us to be able to present to you what programs are available now, but I also wanted to tell you a little bit more about what's coming. Many of you may or may not know that I am on the House Committee on Small Business. So the Small Business Administration falls within my set of specific responsibilities within the U.S. House of Representatives. I also spent over 20 years working in business. I now own part of a small business in St. Paul before I ran and became a member of Congress. I've talked to dozens of you as well as dozens of your mayors over the last several days. And I know that as April rolls around tomorrow, that this is incredibly difficult because these aren't just your businesses, these are often your lives and the lives of people that you care about. I had responsibility for 16,000 employees at one point in my career. And so I just want you to know that there has been nothing more important to me than making sure we survive the global health crisis that we're in and that we get to the other side of this with your businesses intact. So with that, I wanted to cover just a few things that were included in the CARES Act that was just passed by the House on Friday and the President signed into law on Friday evening. $260 billion was included in that package for unemployment insurance. That, for the first time, was also expanded to self-employed individuals, to gig workers, to folks who wouldn't normally be eligible for unemployment insurance. But we're going to have to be just a little bit patient here, and that may be a little bit of a theme here this evening at a time when I know patience is wearing very thin. We are preparing in the state of Minnesota to be able to accept and provide unemployment insurance for a broader set of people. And I'll come back to that toward the end of my comments. the most important thing that the CARES Act does is it sends $150 billion to the US healthcare system, because things are not going to get back to completely normal until we get past the public health crisis that we find ourselves in here today. But the way we get back to the economic growth we've been experiencing is if you are able to survive, your small businesses, because the US government, we can fund all the unemployment insurance in the world, but what we need is to put you in a position to stand your business back up when this is all said and done. So Brian is going to talk about a number of programs this evening that are available to you now. The CARES Act identified $377 billion in loans and grants to small businesses in order for you to maintain your existing workforce. This program that Brian will not be able to roll out in detail to you tonight is going to be coming online in the coming days. My understanding is that the applications were actually added by the department today, but that we're still working on, waiting on the Small Business Administration to roll out the regulations so that our lenders in Minnesota, Brian's going to talk to you about a number of programs that you can apply to at a national level. But the one thing that I was most concerned about in the CARES Act, and I'm proud to say that we got this in there, is I wanted to make sure that our local SBA lenders were going to be put in a position to roll out these programs, and that you didn't have to go to a central website with the SBA for everything. I'm sure that Brian is going to cover this, but I am well aware there have been issues with the administration on just the capacity of the SBA to handle as many applications as have been coming through at one time. My understanding is that has been improved, and capacity has been improved as well. So the Paycheck Protection Program that is inside the CARES Act is a program that is going to provide cash flow assistance through 100% federally guaranteed loans to employers who maintain their payroll during this emergency. And I'm sure Brian will be able to talk a little bit more about this, but if employers maintain their payroll, the loans will be forgiven. And we can go through the details, but you have until 2021 to have the same number of employees who were on your payroll at the end of 2019 in order to have those loans forgiven. PPP has a host of features such as forgiveness of up to 8 weeks of payroll based on employee retention and salary levels, no SBA fees, and at least 6 months of deferral with maximum deferrals up to a year. Small businesses and other eligible entities are going to be able to apply if they were harmed specifically by COVID-19, and all of you who've been asked to shut your doors to business have between February 15th, 2020 and June 30th, 2020. So this program is going to be retroactive to February 15th in order to help bring workers who may have already been laid off back onto payrolls. And those loans are going to be available through June 30th, 2020. And my understanding is on a first come, first served basis. So I know that the SBA is working around the clock to enact this program. It is not yet available. It will be available through your local SBA lender. We have a list of Minnesota's local SBA lenders on my website. We have a host of other materials that are going to be available to you, and we will follow up with you after this webinar to make sure that you have the specifics of them. A couple of other quick things. The program also has another, the CARES Act also had another program in it, the Small Business Debt Relief Program, which would provide immediate relief to small businesses with non-disaster SBA loans, in particular the 7A, 504, and micro loans. And under the SBA will cover all the loan payments, including principal, interest, and fees for 6 months. So these are things that are on the way. The state of Minnesota also has an emergency loan program that was just came online through Deed. I talked to the commissioner today, and he encourages you to go as well to the Deed website. And with that, I just wanted to say that I know this is a really, really difficult time for each of you. I'm going to ask Brian to go through his slide deck. We will make all of these materials and more available to you. And if you're a small business owner and your question doesn't get answered this evening, my team is working directly as well to help folks like you. You can call my district office. I will repeat my district website. These are all official offices of the U.S. government, and we will be happy to help you apply, help get you in touch with the people who can help you get through this. So all of these documents, all of these resources are going to be available here after the call. My district office phone number, 651-846-2120. Again, we will provide this to you. But at the end of the day, my true hope is that you are able to take advantage of this assistance during this time so that you are in a position to stand your business, your dreams back up after we are through this public health crisis, and that you're able to bring your employees back, and that you are as strong or stronger than ever when we all get through this together. So with that, Maureen, I'd like to throw it over to Brian McDonald. Brian is the acting director of the Small Business Administration here in Minneapolis. So Brian, I think you're up next. Brian, I think you're going to have to either unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We got you now.
Oh, all right. I'm also dialing in via my phone, so I apologize about that. But I just wanted to thank you, Congresswoman, for your support. I think it's really a testimony of the connections that we have throughout the economic development community here in Minnesota. To have such programs online so quickly and at a national level. So this is going to make a huge difference. And my office is here in Minnesota, and we're the district office for the state of, there's over 500,000 small businesses here in Minnesota. So I just wanted to reinforce some of the great programs that we have that are on the streets right now. And I want to get into that information. So if we could go to slide 2. So coming to today, as of today, these 2 programs I'm going to specifically highlight are available to small businesses currently. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So the acronym that I'm going to be using today is EIDL, the EIDL, Advance, and the EIDL Loan. So in response to the pandemic, small business owners in all U.S. states, Washington, D.C., and territories, including all of Minnesota, can apply for the EIDL Advance now of up to $10,000, and funds will be made available within 3 days of a successful application. And this loan advance will not have to be repaid. So the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program provides small businesses with working capital loans of up to $2 million that can provide vital economic support to small businesses to help overcome temporary loss of revenue that they are experiencing. So the loan advance will provide economic relief to businesses currently experiencing a temporary loss of revenue. So if we go to slide 3, please. All right, so as of yesterday, the Congresswoman mentioned that we've been adding capacity to our programs. And so we have a new streamlined application process that you can get to via our website at sba.gov/disaster. And it's set up kind of like TurboTax now. So you can kind of choose through some of the options. And our best estimate is that it would take 2 hours or so to complete the application. I've talked to a few people today that it was taking them 15 or 20 minutes. So I think it's all just kind of depends on your situation and how much information you have in front of you. But this is the portal that you apply for both of the programs, the EIDL loan and the EIDL advance of $10,000. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the EIDL loan, the loan terms are up to $2 million and the interest rate is 3.75% for for-profit businesses and 2.75% for nonprofit businesses. And this can go up for 30 years. And really this loan is to be used to pay bills that occurred in the ordinary course of doing business. And so as you go through the process, you will be assigned a loan officer to determine the amount and term of the loan based on the financial information that you provide in the application process. And we're going to be looking at things like your loss of revenue based on the virus that's occurring. So there's no prepayment penalties. And one great factor that just came out in the last couple of days is that there's going to be a 12-month deferment, during which time you don't have to pay, you're not required to make any payments, although interest will be accruing. So next slide, please. So because one of the main differences with this EIDL loan from traditional SBA loans is that you're applying directly to the SBA for these disaster funds, and there are no fees to apply. So anyone that thinks they're eligible, we recommend to try to get an application in. And keep in mind that you don't have to take a loan if something changes between when you apply and when you receive approval. Next slide. So to be eligible, you need to be a for-profit small business or a private nonprofit. So many businesses or most businesses that have been affected by the disaster are going to be eligible for this. So if you're not sure that you're eligible, we encourage you to apply or give our office a call and let the loan officer make the determination on this for you. So we've kind of highlighted here some of the key businesses like small businesses, small agricultural cooperatives, small aquaculture businesses, and most private nonprofit organizations. So I'm going to get into a little more details on this and examples of this on the next slide, please. So examples include restaurants, retailers, manufacturers, sports vendors, owners of rental properties, souvenir shops, travel agencies, hotels, recreational facilities, charter boats, and wholesalers. So one of the big questions that we get is, how do I know if I'm a small business? So we do have a size standards website that you can go to, but in general, the rule of thumb is if you have 500 employees or less, you're going to qualify for these programs. So next slide. Okay, so we're looking at private nonprofit eligibility. So this is another unique feature of our disaster loan program, the EIDL loans, is that nonprofits are also eligible. And so they can include nursing homes, food kitchens, museums, educational facilities, senior citizen centers, daycare centers. So all critical organizations in our communities here. And so nonprofit status can be based either on state or federal law. And so our disaster center is encouraging any private nonprofit to apply. And again, let our loan officers make a determination of eligibility if you are unsure. Go to the next slide, ineligible entities. So these are some of the ineligible businesses for our programs. So in general, if you grow it, feed it, or water it, the business is probably an agricultural enterprise and is not eligible, except for agriculture aquaponics, like I had mentioned before. And so the second bullet point causes a little confusion because it says charitable nonprofits are not eligible. But if you aren't sure about your status, again, we encourage you to apply. And also there's some great resources that we've highlighted in blue that the USDA has and the state of Minnesota has as well. Next slide, please. So as you're going through and looking for financial assistance, we also have some great technical assistance that's available from our partners around the state, and especially in in our area, and they can help business owners prepare and understand financial statements as well as provide general business advice. And we already know that our SBDC consultants and SCORE mentors are helping clients with this application. So we recommend to contact our resource partners and utilize their expertise. The state of Minnesota, as the Congresswoman mentioned, also has resources available to help and assist small business owners. The small business emergency loans will be, you will use a list of state certified lenders for these loans up to $35,000. And the Minnesota Small Business Guarantee Program will help businesses with less than 250 employees and loans of up to $200,000. So we've been working closely with DEED on making sure that our programs are complementary to each other through this whole process. And DEED was really instrumental in having us be able to stand up our disaster loans as well. But these are specifically some resources at the state level. Next slide, please. And of course, during this time, we all need to beware of some of the scams and fraud schemes that we're already seeing take place. So again, there's no cost to apply for our EIDL disaster advance or loan program. And SBA does not solicit contact on either our 7A disaster loans or grants, nor do we require upfront payments of any kind. So if you're contacted regarding your loan, ensure that the reference application number is consistent with your actual application number. If in doubt, please verify all program information at sba.gov or by contacting SBA directly. So, and the last slide that I have here is just want to reinforce that we are working hard to get you access to all of SBA's programs. And the best way to get real-time information, things are changing day to day with new programs coming online and resources that we're aggregating from around the state. To sign up for our newsletter, and that's listed here at www.sba.gov/updates. And please type in your zip code, and that you'll make sure to get all of the local resources in your area. We also listed our contact information here at the Minnesota District Office. We have a direct email, and there's several staff members here on the SBA team who are monitoring that throughout the day. That's minneapolis.mn@sba.gov. And we also have a phone line that you can call into in Minnesota, and that number is listed here. But I would like to also recommend we have a 1-800 number for disaster-related questions, and that's 1-800-659-2955. And we have just extended that phone line to be open 24/7. And we've increased capacity vastly on our phone lines as well. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to the Congresswoman and to the Dakota Chamber of Commerce for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Brian. I really appreciate it. Hey, Maureen, I just wanted to say, Brian, thank you for everything that the SBA is doing. I know a number of people on this call would be aware that the website was having some issues with some of the programs you just went over. Can you just maybe say a few words about how that's been remedied, and if it has? I just want to set expectations.
Yeah. So my understanding is yesterday, the new system, the TurboTax-esque system, became activated and live, and we worked with a private sector vendor to get that set up and running. And so what I've heard is that we have the capability at this point to process 2,000 applications a second. So we're pretty excited about the capability that's been added to our online portal. And it's kind of like I mentioned, kind of a TurboTax situation now. So a lot of the eligibility that I mentioned, I think it's good to just have that framework going into it because we don't want to waste anyone's time. But a lot of it will be kind of filtered out as you go through this streamlined process. And it's that one application portal that can get you the EIDL advance grant of $10,000 and the EIDL loan of up to $2 million. So you apply just in that one spot.
Excellent. I just wanted to encourage folks who maybe have been on the website before yesterday and got frustrated to go back out and try again. And if you're still having issues, give Brian a call.
Congresswoman, can I add one quick point?
Sure.
So we have found out that since we put up the new website yesterday, there were people who applied before that change happened. Now, these loans are on a first come, first served basis. So that's why we recommend all Minnesota businesses get these applications in as soon as possible. And our expected time frame is about 3 to 4 weeks for when these are going to get approved. So our best recommendation is to get these in as soon as possible. Now, the advance of $10,000 just became live. So for those who applied previous to that option existing, we recommend that folks go back in and apply if you didn't apply when the advance was what was available. But one thing that I've heard that we can reassure you is you won't lose your place in line. So if you go back in and submit for the advance 10,000, your place in line is going to be held.
Great. Maureen, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Angie, and thank you, Brian, so much. That was very helpful and great, valuable information and resources. We're now going to start the Q&A portion of the program. And as Angie had mentioned earlier, the questions that I'll be asking have been submitted by people who had registered for the webinar. And we're not going to get to all the questions that were submitted, but Angie's team has them all on file, and we'll be following up with people if their questions are not answered this evening. So just know that your questions will be answered. So I am going to start. I'm going to start with you, Angie. What types of businesses and entities are eligible for the PPP loan according to the CARES Act? And that's the Paycheck Protection Program loan program.
Well, I'll talk through what's eligible, but I also just want to give everyone a reminder. These will be the loans that will be processed through our local SBA lenders. There is a list of those local SBA lenders on our website at craig.house.gov. This program has not yet been rolled out. So just remember that the bill was literally signed by the president on Friday. The SBA has been working, as Brian said, around the clock to develop the program. There are regulatory things that have to be finalized and rolled out to your community lender before you can come forward and apply for a PPP grant and loan. But we want to get you in a position to be ready to do that. So what type of entities are eligible? It'll be those that were operational on February the 15th of 2020, small businesses, as well as any 501c3 nonprofit, a 501c19 veterans organization, or a tribal business concern. All of these have to have 500 employees or fewer as established by that relevant industry code. So if you operate a sole proprietorship, or you're an independent contractor, or you're an eligible self-employed individual, you are also eligible for a PPP loan. Now, again, it's the SBA who will roll this out, so I don't want to get ahead of Brian and the SBA, but obviously there are a number of people who are very, very interested in applying for these programs. So we'll leave it at that. And again, there's more information that's available on my website at craig.house.gov.
Great. Another question, Angie. What are the costs? What costs are eligible for payroll?
Well, as the legislation was written, the CARES Act, compensation, that's salary, that's wages, that's commission, similarly, payment of cash tip or equivalent, vacation pay, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, even allowance for dismissal or separation, payments for group healthcare benefits, including insurance premiums. So retirement benefits, essentially anything that you would think of as a compensation, either cash compensation or a benefit compensation that you're providing to your employees.
Okay, great. Thank you. Where do I, and this is for you, Angie, where do I go to get the PPP loan?
Well, that's exactly what everybody wants to know right now. You're going to be going to your SBA lender. And if memory serves me correct, Brian, there are about 400 SBA lenders in Minnesota.
Yes.
Is that close?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 400 SBA lenders. As I said before, we have made those organizations where they are and what their names are available on my official government website. But please, please know, if you go to them today, they will not have the regulations from the SBA to be able to put that together at this moment in time. But obviously, the SBA, they may be authorizing additional lenders beyond those 400. We heard on a call today with a number of House leaders, but we'll have to see. But you will be able to go see and or Zoom with or call your SBA lender. Brian, did you want to add anything to that? What did I miss?
You know, I think you nailed it perfectly. And I mean, this is breaking news just this afternoon. So I think the timing of this call couldn't be better to just be able to share this information on a timely basis. So yeah, the new program is going to help small businesses with payroll and other business operating expenses. And so this PPP program that we're talking about is going to be a new program coming online in just the next couple of days. So it's in addition to the disaster funding that I was going into detail about. So there's a lot of great options coming online really soon. And so again, the best way to figure all this out and to filter out all of this and what makes sense for you is to keep in touch with our office as well and sign up for our updates. And we're also doing 2 trainings a day in our office right now on the existing programs. And I'm sure we're going to quickly pivot and start training on all the programs that are available as well. So thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Great. You mentioned that these loans are forgivable. How do they get forgiven, Angie?
Well, you have to apply through your lender for forgiveness on the loan. And in that application, you document the number of employees on payroll and their pay rates, including the IRS payroll tax filings and state income. And then the documentation payments on things like mortgage obligations, lease obligations, utilities. And then certification from a representative of your business or organization that is authorized to certify that all of this is true. So once you go see your SBA lender, they will walk you through what documentation you're going to need in order to be forgiven. And Brian, again, I'm not the SBA loan expert. I only was involved in helping write the legislation. I know you guys are going to figure out how to implement it. You know, that's the thing about members of Congress. We write these legislations and somebody else has to figure out how to operationalize it. But my understanding is if you, are paying your employees through this difficult time period and you're able to get your business back up and running with the same number of employees, you will have that forgiven. Is that close to accurate?
Yep. So the loans will be forgiven as long as the funds are used to keep employees on the payroll and for certain other expenses. Exactly.
And one of the questions that came up today on our caucus call with the House is, if you're sitting here today and you laid some folks off, when the pandemic first happened because you had to cut your expenses immediately, Brian, there'll be some leeway to bring those folks back on at this point, correct?
That to me at the moment is unclear how we're going to be shaking all that out. But again, all payments are going to be deferred, to my understanding, for 6 months. And I think it just shows just the collaborative effort with Congress passing this in such short order. And now today, the press release that just went out today from SBA and the Treasury Department. This is kind of historic legislation and programs that are coming online right now to provide much needed relief to thousands of small businesses in our state, to sustain businesses and keep workers employed. So it's coming very soon. We expect it's going to be up and running with all the fine print and how you can go about applying, who you would go to within the next couple of days.
Great. Brian, are there ways small business owners can be preparing their businesses right now ahead of the regulations being released?
I would recommend going to sba.gov/disaster. And again, looking at our economic injury disaster loan program that I spelled out today, that's actually available today. Look at that, get the quick advance of up to $10,000 for payroll and operating expenses for the economic injury that you're suffering right now because of this crisis. Again, don't wait. So first and foremost, I recommend using our existing programs. And then, as the Congresswoman said, we're going to have these new programs coming online in the next couple of days. And you can go to treasury.gov/cares. And there's some information on that site that you could do right now to prepare as well.
Great. So as far as getting the most up-to-date information about all these new programs and where they will be rolled out, where can that be found? I know you just mentioned a few.
So we've been listing a lot of websites. I'll make sure the Congresswoman's office and your office at the chamber has kind of a aggregation of all these links. I know it can kind of sound like drinking from the fire hose right now, but just to keep it very simple, sba.gov/coronavirus has some great information. Pretty much anywhere it's easy to find information on sba.gov. So I would just keep it simple, go to SBA's website, sign up for our Minnesota District Office newsletter. Again, that's at sba.gov/updates, plural with an S. And we have a pretty great Twitter account as well. And the handle for that is SBA_Minnesota. And we're posting throughout the day on our Twitter account as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Angie, will there be unemployment compensation support for nonprofits, state, tribal, and local governments?
Most nonprofits and Indian tribes and governmental entities don't pay per worker unemployment taxes. Instead, they have a reimbursable arrangement with state unemployment programs. So during the period of the national emergency, the federal government would pay 50% of the reimbursement for those workers so that their employees can follow the public health recommendations. And workers at these organizations are also eligible for the pandemic unemployment compensation supplement of $600 a week. So we certainly have considered that within the CARES Act.
Great. Another question, Angie. Why does the CARES Act replace 100% of wages for the average worker? Will that discourage people from working?
Well, I know that this is a question that has come up over the last few weeks, and we are living in, absolutely unprecedented times at this moment. And if we want people who are sick to stay home, to not be out looking for a job because perhaps the unemployment amount that they're receiving is less than what they were averaging. We don't want them out looking for a job right now. And so these are unprecedented times. We want people to stay home. That will help keep us all well. And the sooner the public health epidemic passes, the faster we get this economy back up and running and your business back fully productive. So, Maureen, I think that is the thinking. Boy, I tell you, I think every one of us is going to be real happy to go back to work with each other when this is all said and done.
You bet. I'll agree with you on that. Brian, if I apply for a loan, will I still be in the running for any grants down the road?
So at the current time, we can't really speculate on that. So again, there are the two programs available that I went into detail on tonight, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the recently added Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. They're both available, and we encourage everyone to apply for those. If your application is accepted, you will have the option to not take funding, like I mentioned. And if approved, you don't have to take the loan funds either. So there's no obligation and there's no cost to apply for these funds.
Okay, great. Thank you. Angie, I am worried that the current legislation will not be enough to save my business. Are you all working on further legislation?
Well, we are working on further legislation, but I describe the CARES Act as a rescue package. It has an enormous amount, $377 billion in it to help save small businesses. So I think we have to keep evaluating, depending on how long our stay-at-home orders, our shelter-in-place orders occur across the country. So it's a little bit dependent upon how long this situation goes, but I would just encourage each of you to be able to get those small business loans in. We also have offered some direct government assistance to Americans, $1,200 for individuals who make up to $75K a year, $2,400 in this latest bill for a married couple, plus $500 per dependent. So we have direct assistance coming as well. But there's no doubt, in my mind at least, that we are going to need, in order to help our economy recover, I want every single one of you to be able to save your businesses. And I want to be an advocate for any small business assistance you need to get to the other side of this. But I honestly believe on the other side of this, and I was glad to see the president talking about this earlier today, we are going to need a stimulus bill in the future. This to me was rescue. We are triaging at this point. You all know this because you feel it in your bones as you're trying to save your own business. But next, we need a stimulus bill. And, I'm on the Small Business Committee, the House Committee on Small Business. I'm also on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. So one of the best ways we could put people to work in this country right now to help build the economic stimulus package is let's put people to finally fixing the roads in the state, to repairing the bridges, to doing those things that we know as a community need to be done. And so I think you're going to see this next phase. Obviously, we want to clean up some things from the CARES Act because it was passed so quickly. A little nit of mine that I've introduced legislation on today is you get the $500 rebate that was included in the CARES Act for dependents who are 16 years old and younger. If you're like me, I've got a 17 and a 20 and a 22-year-old right now living in my basement. We've got college kids all over the country who have come home, and I was a little bit surprised to see that dependent definition did not include children who are 17 to 24 who may be students, nor did it include disabled adults. So that's something that I'm going to try to fix here in the next package, if not sooner.
Great, thank you. You mentioned recovery and triage. So Angie, when will businesses that are closed right now be allowed to reopen?
Well, I wish I could.
Ball.
I wish I had. I was going to say I wish I had a crystal ball, and that won't be my decision. That'll be more the governor's decision about when we can, forego shelter in place, stay-at-home orders, when social distancing comes back into effect, and that should be and must be driven by the medical community and the doctors who are there. Today, Mayo and the University of Minnesota announced that they are very close on an antibody test. I think this is absolutely critical for us to be able to know who has already experienced COVID-19 and is, at least we believe at this point from the medical community, safe to go out and start to participate in the economy again. So I think the answer is I don't have a crystal ball. We're going to have to deal with this as it comes. And I think, again, I know for many of you, the bills are starting to flow in here as we turn the corner to April. And the immediate need is just to get you the triage assistance that you need in order to keep paying folks and to keep your doors open, so that when we do get past the public health side of this, you are there to help us stand back up the economy. If it was ever a question in this country, as I think about big business versus small businesses, if there was ever a question in this company, the economic driver of this nation, it is small businesses. And so, this wasn't your question, Maureen, but I know everybody's working hard to keep themselves open and to bring their employees back, and I just appreciate that so much.
Thank you. And 2/3 of our chamber membership are those small businesses. So
That's right.
it's critical and it's urgent.
Over 50% of this congressional district are small businesses. And so, that's why, to me, it was so important to be on the Committee on Small Business.
Great. Brian, a question. My business is based in Minnesota, but we have other locations in other states. How is the SBA interacting across state lines?
So SBA is a federal agency, and we all know this is a national disaster. So we're working across state lines with a whole government approach, thanks to the steps taken by President and Congress and our administrator to meet the needs during this extraordinary time.
Great. So this concludes our the Q&A portion of our program this evening. And Brian and Angie, thank you so much for your time this evening. And shortly, I'll have each of you give some closing remarks. But before we do that, just a couple of comments. Representative Craig, thank you. Thank you for your steadfast support, your tireless efforts, your rolling up the sleeves in the trenches, doing what you can to help our businesses in the District 2 survive and succeed. You have been a great communicator. Your staff is outstanding, very ready, available, and very responsive. So thank you so much. Brian, thank you for all of your efforts and the work with the SBA. I have sat back over this last 10 days and have watched things change and transpire literally, hour to hour. And the information coming out of the district office has been so valuable and helpful, and your willingness to always be available. So on behalf of the Dakota County Regional Chamber and all the local chambers throughout Dakota County and Congressional District 2, thank you so much for your service. So we will now start with closing comments. So Angie, if you want, I think Brian was going to go first.
I think so.
Okay, Brian.
Great. Thank you guys so much for having us tonight. I hope some of the information we provided to you can point you in the right direction, and just know that we are here for you. Know that SBA understands how critical a time this is for you, and we're doing everything we can to get these programs out to you as quickly as possible, and to train and communicate and be there to assist you and to navigate you through these programs during this time. We're getting calls like we've never gotten before in our office. And we are here, and we are working diligently with our partners across the state as well. So thank you all very much.
Angie.
Thank you so much. Brian, thank you for being here. Thank you for going through the programs that are available now. Perhaps we'll have you back again to walk through the new programs once the regulations are set up and they're rolled out. So that would be fantastic. Maureen, thank you for moderating and for being such a great leader in our community in Dakota County. And I know there are a number of additional Chamber of Commerce leaders and members out there from across the 2nd District. So I just want to say thank you for fighting so hard for your members to make sure that I was fighting for the right things in each of these recovery packages. I am open to fighting for what you believe we need. Whatever that is in these next, hopefully we turn to stimulus at some point rather than triage and recovery. But I want to end just exactly where I started. I know this is a stressful, emotional, and difficult time for our business owners and leaders in the 2nd District, in the state of Minnesota, and around the country. And I just appreciate so much your willingness to reach out, to ask for what you need. My staff and I are here available to you no matter what you need. We will get you in touch with the right people to help you. We'll help you ourselves if we can. I mean, we'll help you fill out the application if we need to, because I want to have a big celebration of how many businesses survived a global pandemic. These are unprecedented times. We are all learning as we go. We are all moving as fast as we can. And I just want each of you to know how much I appreciate everything that you're doing for your workers. And if you need anything, we're going to be here for you. Be patient a little bit in the coming days. You know, things are happening at breakneck speed, particularly in the context of the federal government. Everyone is needing the services at exactly the same moment. Again, we have about 250,000 people in Minnesota just in the last 2 weeks who have filed for unemployment. So that's what's happening across the country. And so be just a little bit more patient and more kind. And then the last thing I want to say is just be well, be safe. We're all in this together. And at the end of the day, just all the best to you and your families, and stay well.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yep. Brian, thank you. And thank you all to who
Thank you, guys.
jumped on board and attended our program this evening. We hope you find it of value. And again, please feel free to contact Representative Craig's office and Brian McDonald over at the district office at the SBA here in Minnesota. So thank you, everyone. Have a safe night and be healthy. Thank you.